One and
good evening. You're flying with Pod Squadron podcast. All wings report in. This is Andy, Pod Job, standing by.
This is Pod Tracer, standing by.
Padawan, standing by.
Children of a Lesser Pod, standing by.
All ships to attack formation. Mission objectives to talk about Star Wars in movies, streaming, animation, books, themed experiences, and your art and inspiration from a galaxy far, far away. Today's flight plan includes Andor. We'll do a little catch up on episodes 1 through 3, and of course, our most recent episode, episode 4, as we come up on the next episode very soon. And for all of you out there, all comm channels are open. Follow us on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. Follow us on YouTube. Like and subscribe and hit the bell icon so you know when we have new content. But first, I'll be your squad leader for today. I'm Andy Lowe, aka the Chinese Pirate, director, storyteller, puppeteer, performer, and fight choreographer. On my wing, as always, is Tracy.
With 1 C, 1 Y, and it's right where you think.
Nailed it.
There it is.
Oh, God, you just killed me.
We've lost Andy, everyone.
I'm Tracy, the hot nerd girl. La 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 la.
You can't top it now, so you had to stop it.
Nope.
And
About
on my other wing is Lexi.
Hi guys, Lexi, finally back. I am the Feral Geek Aesthetic. See, it's been so long. I don't know who I am anymore. Feral Geek Aesthetic, multidisciplinary artist, and Deathwalker in training. Hey, go ahead, Google. That'll be fun.
And holding down our rear flank is Jason.
Hey, toy guy, nerd guy, film guy, beyondforever.net. How are you lovely people today?
And of course, Rodney's back in the support ship on the support frigate, as always. And of course, remember, we are just one squad in this fleet. We're part of the Geekish Network. That's right here on YouTube and on Facebook. Look for us and all the other great shows throughout the week. S-foils to attack position. We're going in. Let's get into it. So Lexi and Jason, you were not with us when we were discussing the first 3 episodes, the giant drop that was the first 3 episodes.
Yes.
So very quickly, before we get into this week's episode, because there's lots of exciting stuff with this, what are your guys' thoughts? I want to hear your raw impressions as we go into it.
Oh wow. I mean, I've been really excited for this one. I'm a big old Diego Luna fan, and I just really love the fact that they, like, when Rogue One came out, I was like, they had him keep his accent, and that like kind of made me tear up when I saw Rogue One. Definitely teared up a little bit. I knew he was going to keep it in this one, but
I know, after all these British accents for all these years and all these American accents all these years.
I know, and the fact that you've got a Mexican accent on a hero, just bless. That made me so happy. My first impression is, do we want to like go back and forth, or just how do we want to do this? Oh, wouldn't be a
Keep
show.
going.
He doesn't want to hear anything.
Keep going while Tracy falls.
Insert long-suffering sigh.
You know what I like about it the most is like, you know, it doesn't hurry. You know, I mean, like it gives me all of the Star Wars that I want, but it also checks the other box in terms of the gritty drama, little spy, little action, espionage. You know, it's the best of both worlds, and plus we know it has a definitive endpoint, which I like. I mean, it's going to be
Yeah, we know what happens.
Right.
Like,
Yeah.
it's like watching Moulin Rouge or the Titanic. We know what's going to happen.
Right. And I'm sure, you know, when we get into season 2, like down the road, we're going to be like, no, they're going to be okay, right? It's like, no, they're not. But I mean, but it's still, I mean, I was rewatching 4 last night, and I was talking about that with my family, where I'm like, you know, I just like it because, you know, again, it's Star Wars and it's not Star Wars. You know, I mean, it really checks all the boxes for me, and I like the slow burn, and everyone in it so far has been fantastic. And I mean, I think I say this about every show when we review it, but I think it's my new favorite Star Wars show. So I mean, but I'm really liking.
That's my new favorite. Every show is your favorite.
Yeah, it's my new favorite. I like this, and I'm gonna like Obi-Wan season 2, and I'm gonna like Bad Batch season 2, and then I'm gonna hate this. No, but I mean, it's just, yeah, it's a lot of fun, and I mean, even though again, we know we're,
it is a little bit of hey, look, Star Wars is doing an HBO show. since HBO has scared off all of their creatives, all their creatives are going to Star Wars.
It's Star Wars: The Last of Us. So yeah, it's good.
Yeah, and I know I've been sounding to the point of sounding repetitive, complaining about pacing with the last few shows that they've released, being like, well, I like X, Y, and Z, but what is up with this pacing? Nope. They got it. I love it. It's fantastic.
So the interesting thing is, and there have been, of course, on the internet, there have been people complaining about the pace. But the interesting thing is that they were very smart about dropping the first 3 episodes, so we get used to the idea of, well, what he actually did was wrote a series of 3-act screenplay like features, right? So I mean, basically every episode is more of an act in a feature than it is like an episode, so to speak, right?
Yeah, I mean, it introduces all of these characters, and you have to complete all of these like little mini arcs, and then eventually it ends on a cliffhanger. And it was like, oh, I mean, like those 3 episodes, it got you in, it sucked you in. It's like, good, let's keep going. So I think it was very smart and successful to do it that way.
And you know what I say to all the people who are whining is that about the pacing, oh, it's too slow, it's boring. Okay, my high school film teacher said the modern audience has the attention span of a goldfish. You're proving her right.
Yeah.
So just like personally, one of the little things that got me, and it kind of goes along with Diego Luna's Mexican accent, all of that, something that I feel like they kind of threw in specifically for his character back in the first episode was when the guards are heckling him and they're like, oh, what, did you swim here? And I like literally paused and I was like, you did not, like they called him a space wetback.
Oh shit. I did not quite put that together, but yeah, okay.
I mean,
yeah.
So that one would hit closer to home for me. And like I picked that up and and the fact that when they're like, get the credits out of your pocket, he's like, nope, hands are staying up here.
Yeah, totally.
They did some really good subtle touches that weren't beating you over the head with things. But
I mean, I think there is definitely an intentionality in terms of the Andor the Cassian or Casa story of his role as a refugee of sorts. Some of that story that we're still yet to have revealed, and it's interesting as we get into episode 4. But that motif of the flashbacks, kind of telling the origin story on his home planet, was not present for this current episode. So it will be interesting to see how we dig back into that.
Is that because the first each 3 episode chunk was filmed by the same director as almost like a little 3-parter, right? So this is the first episode of the next 3-parter.
Right. Yeah.
And I liked, kind of goes along with the neat little socio-political drama that they have going on, how he's a refugee from a planet that was basically abused by a Empire sanctioned corporation.
Right. Well, and only to move on to another town that is,
does, if that doesn't sound familiar.
I mean, it is, there is definitely an allegory for how colonialism works, and how large corporations and governments that take resources from smaller entities and turn them into factory workers, right? I mean, it's like it is the story of our current state of colonized economies.
Before you guys say too much more, apparently we're all frozen.
Oh, fun.
Oh.
So give it a second, because it looks like Rodney froze. Oh, you can still hear us? Oh,
Oh.
just our video is frozen.
Oh.
Hopefully, I'm making a good face.
Yeah, I'm
Oh.
probably. I probably got like my tongue hanging out, and I'm halfway
I'm
blinking.
sure I'm blinking and I look stoned.
Well, okay, so Jason and Lexi, do you
Kevin!
guys have anything else you'd like to share, or quick impressions from episodes 1 through 3 before we
know
move into
who I
4?
love to hate is oh god, what's his name? Cyril. You know,
Cyril Karn?
The main bad
Yeah.
guy. I read an article that summed up perfectly exactly. They're like, he's like a well-groomed Wile E. Coyote that we can't wait to see fall off a cliff. And I'm like, that is like, he's so good. He's just got that
That's
resting
so accurate.
bitch face, and that guy, you just want to see him fail.
That's
So,
so
you know, I mean,
accurate.
okay, we'll get into like what our predictions are, but I mean, it is interesting because I don't know, like the series of events, like, do we think he's going to? I mean, you know, because ultimately he is as much a victim of the Empire's rule
Yeah.
as everyone else, and that'll be an interesting thing to see if this is how does he join the rebellion story, or if it's how he becomes part of the endless bureaucracy that eats its own tail.
It would be
that
a
is the
turn.
Empire,
It
right?
would. It would
I
be
mean,
fun to see. So, but until then, I just like watching him just trip and fall.
Just eat
So
it.
so one thing that I do want to call it that I didn't talk about last week that I really noticed on this second rewatch was Luthen's cane. Did any of you guys kind of notice how he carried his walking stick?
No, that detail escaped me.
So he lands his ship outside of town.
Oh.
We see him hiking, using that walking stick to kind of traverse like rocky terrain, and then we see him walk, or you know, he takes the space trolley into town, and we see him walking through the streets with the stick fully extended, but he kind of just brandishes it out. He's not like leaning on it; it's just kind of sticking out. And then at some
Like a
point,
prop.
he holds it high in the air, and you see it detract and just kind of, you know, suck into a small package. And it was such an interesting movement, choreography of how he was holding this, and I'm going to come back to that.
Did you notice the knife retracting from it? That's what Danny says.
I did not see the knife, but I mean, I did watch it retract into the thing. Does he use it in the fight?
I don't remember.
Aesthetically, it gave that little detail coming up just brings to mind Lucius Malfoy's cane with the wand in it.
See, I have other thoughts. Well, yes, that too. Yes, because I mean, there was definitely him kind of walking through with a certain elegance through this very blue collar town. Yeah. So I believe where we left off, we were still talking about Luthen Stick. Hi.
Wait,
So-
before we go on, can I read some of these comments on the air real
Okay.
quick?
Go for it.
Just because you guys are, oh wait, they have visual but no audio. Oh wait. Michael says as you were. Okay, hold on. I'm gonna read some of these comments. So first of all, everybody's blaming it on Kevin. So Kevin, that's
Damn it, Kevin.
Damn it, Kevin.
Michael said, "Damn miracles of science, why you no work?" Kevin said, "Until then, please enjoy this word from our sponsors. Are you tired of ordinary blue milk? Come on down and try Boba Fett's baby blue milk." Looking for love in Alderaan places. That's Brian. And philosopher. Somebody said looking for love at the pod races. Yes, I know my webcam utility, $5. It's Tracy's webcam causing the problem.
Would Boba Fett have blue boba?
Ooh.
Yeah.
Boba's blue boba.
Say that 5 times fast.
I'm not a huge
Yeah.
Boba fan. Like slimy little balls in my. All right.
Okay, we're
now
really
we can
on a roll
continue.
with phrasing today, you
So
guys.
back to
Thanks for
sticks.
sticking in there with us, guys.
So I'm gonna just jump right into this. So I just found it very interesting watching how he kind of brandished the stick walking through the blue collar town, and then lifting it high in the air to retract it, and it just suddenly struck me that he's kind of retracting it that like he was like retracting a lightsaber, which kind of made me wonder.
I do remember that. Yes.
Yeah. He, of course he does hand Cassian as a point of credit a light
Kyber
blue
crystal.
Kyber crystal.
Mhm.
What does he call it
No.
specifically?
It's not a Kyber crystal.
A Kawadi signet blue Kyber
Yeah.
sky stone.
Yeah, a Kyber sky.
so-
Is it a Kyber crystal?
Kyber crystal. I mean, it says blue Kyber sky stone. I've never heard it referred to as sky stone before, but that's interesting.
That was my
Yeah,
question.
but it could
as well,
it
'cause I'm
could
like,
be
what
it
is
could
that
be a
thing?
dialect.
And he says
then-
it will mean more to
More-
me than it will mean to anyone else. Which
I
is
caught that, and it made me go.
So like I mean I know we want to keep this, everyone's talking about this show being very grounded. There's no Jedi, there's no Sith, but I mean maybe could he be a former Padawan, a former someone who has removed his Kyber crystal from his. I mean, probably not. I don't know. It was just.
I
very
don't get the
interesting.
feeling he's force sensitive.
And neither do I. He also seems too devious to be Jedi.
But
right?
maybe at some point he loved somebody that was force sensitive.
Maybe. That's a good
Now
point.
I know that the
Could have been a
Kawadi,
gift from.
the Kawadi are like an ancient family from the extended universe, right? So by bringing in just that sentence, they're
Yeah.
bringing in a huge chunk from the extended universe that has like almost a whole world that comes with it.
Oh my god, there are so many Easter eggs in this episode that like reach into the deep reaches of both legends and yeah, I mean just walking through the store alone. I mean, you had an homage to Starkiller from The Force
Yes!
Unleashed. You had some Mandalorian armor. They name a couple other species and other like regular Star Wars aliens in there.
They had the
but,
shield. They had some of the shields from the Battle of Naboo.
and then even going back to like orders, right? So this conversation that he has with Cassian in the ship as they go to the hyperdrive, Cassian asks him, what are you, Alliance, Sep, Guerrilla, Partisan, which was kind of interesting to kind of name all of these various factions in one breath.
I like how they call Saw Gerrera's people gorillas. I don't know why.
Because he is a gorilla in our midst.
Mhm.
Well, gorilla, like a war gorilla.
I know.
G-
He is a
GUE.
gorilla in our
Gor-
midst.
Oh, okay,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah, and it does kind of and it fits with his name, so you know. Also, I apologize.
Which came first?
I apologize if my wavy hands are distracting. I'm giving hand commands to a 60-pound puppy that you can maybe kind of see blurring through the background here.
It's okay. It just looks like you're an amputee sometimes.
And
yeah, but it's okay because we often lose chunks of Andy's head, so it's fine.
Right. And if she does anything, you kind of see her waving around back there. If she does anything really unruly, you might see me just rush and jumping up and being like, leave it. So that should be fun.
I can see a dog-shaped blur in the background.
Yeah, the dog-shaped blur.
Okay, so we also get a call out to Solo, right? Because as we find out a little bit more about Cassian, he's apparently fought in the trenches at Minban. Well, okay. So he says straight out of the prison into the mud, and Luthen basically says you were supposed to go as a cook and you got out, right?
No, he said he was a cook and he hid, and that's how he got out.
Right.
But that's where Solo met Chewie in the Solo movie.
Right. He also mentions, of course, that fighting an enemy and finding out they were fighting themselves, right? Which is more of that kind of lore of that, how the Empire kind of uses its frontline infantry.
Oh, because they were fighting rebels. They were fighting rebels from the surface, and he also is a rebel.
He's not a rebel.
He doesn't
yet,
want to be.
Right?
Yeah.
He's basically just finding common folk, more or less, right?
Right. Okay, that makes sense. Yeah. See, everybody says he ran away.
Yep.
Anyway. Okay.
Let's see here. We also get our first peek at Imperial Security Bureau on Coruscant. Any thoughts on our first look at Coruscant since Revenge of the Sith?
That's exactly how I picture people when I call my credit card company after it's been hacked. So
I don't think we're going to get an any more accurate summation than that.
Which I only bring up because that actually happened like last week, so it was just fresh on my mind. But I'm like, I think that's the guy I talked to. It's like, oh, you got to charge from Pizza Hut? Well, I need more information. All right, well, I'll set the dissertation out later. Sorry, tangent, but yeah.
Are you kidding? It's what we do, man.
I know, right?
What would our show be without tangents?
Without the tangents, without the dips into the trenches? Yes, it's so true.
And Andy desperately trying to get us back on track.
Yeah.
Like, I didn't hear you. I'm just gonna keep going.
Every once in a while.
The question I asked, and I get us right back where we need. Yeah.
But this
it seemed really very like Third Reich-ish. Like it had that kind of feel, which I know that the Empire typically does have that kind of feel, and there's like they took inspiration from things like that.
It's also really interesting in terms of it's very much a bloated bureaucracy, right?
And
it's like
this
oh,
Deidre. Oh, I'm sorry. Did I freeze?
Yeah, we lost you for a sec.
Oh, maybe that was a hint from the universe that I shouldn't say what I was about to say.
No, say it. Do it.
I was gonna say that Deidre Miro looks kind of like a Hitler wet dream.
Yeah,
that's definitely. I was like, oh hey, Aryan Dream Girl.
Okay.
Exactly.
I think it's more to like on the theme of it being a completely bloated bureaucracy is the fact that she and how did I just blank out on his name? Thank you, Jason, because now all I can think of is Wile E. Coyote.
Cyril Karn.
Yeah. So I'm thinking they're the only ones actually trying to do their jobs right, and they're the ones who are getting, just completely dumped on.
That was an interesting theme, kind of going through these various scenes where it was so much about both of them who are devout believers relying on their instincts and who are ultimately downtrodden because of bureaucracy. He complains. What was it? The chief of Imperial Security says, well, this other guy, all of his reports are in on time, and you're all late, and you're wasting time on these other gut instincts. I'm paraphrasing horribly, but and it's interesting that, I mean, this is the picture that we are now being given of the Empire, and ultimately why they fail, right? If they had just, given some thought to some of this gut instinct, that probably would have been better off, honestly.
If they trusted their people and gave them some agency rather than treating them like cogs in a machine.
Yeah, sure.
Which is the exact thing that the rebels do. They give their people agency. They trust them even if they don't exactly agree with them. They don't treat them like a tool. And that's where you can kind of, it's the little long thread in that.
I also really found this fascinating. He says, "What is our purpose? Security is an illusion. We are healthcare provider. We are healthcare providers. We identify disease, germs, viruses, and deal with the problem." Which
pretty
is
ironic coming from Qyburn.
Yeah, it's a very interesting. It paints a wonderful picture. So much character and world building in a couple of lines. Really well done.
So if last week we had a little bit of a Chernobyl reunion, this week we have a little bit of a Game of Thrones reunion with the guy in charge of the security folks was Qyburn on Game of Thrones, and then the gal who is leading the little rebel mission, she was the waif, the one who would always fight Arya in the Faceless Men temple. That's the same, because I couldn't figure out where I knew her from, and I was like, I know, and it took me a while, and I remembered.
Anybody notice that Cyril Karn's actor has the reverse initials Kyle Solar?
Oh,
what is that referencing?
No, I literally was just thinking about that because I was like, that was his name, Cyril Karn, and his actor is Kyle Solar, so they've got the same initials. That has nothing to do with anything.
Really
I'm just
No, that's a good little find. It's like,
I don't know. It has nothing to do with anything. I just was like, oh, that's cute.
His mom was another one I was trying to recognize, and she was the squib chick from Harry Potter, the neighbor.
Oh, interesting.
The one who testified at the Ministry of Magic. Anyway.
One other fun little thing. Notice that they make a quick little mention of a lot of activity with construction shipments to Scarif.
Yeah,
and of course, most of the security committee has no idea what that is, and they're like, "What is it? What's up with that?" And like, never mind, move on.
Nothing
to see there.
Here.
Building a planet somewhere. That's just the moon.
For those who don't know what they're talking about, that's where the Empire moved the construction of the Death Star. Was to Scarif,
which sets things up for Rogue One nicely.
Yeah.
So then we see Karn and his both his boss and his little buddy get torn down by the regional Imperial security guy, the rival to Deidre, right? And he basically declares that the Morlana system is under permanent Imperial authority, which is exactly what his boss was worried about happening, right?
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see what they do with both Deidre and Cyril being kind of shut down in various ways by the Empire. I wonder if they'll turn them into foils of each other.
See, that's what I thought initially, and then I saw this episode, then I was like, oh no, they're gonna be like allies. Like, she's gonna recruit him, I bet.
I think it's gonna be the greatest love story of their time.
A very Aryan love story.
That or ultimately Cyril will like stab her in the back to advance over her, right? And she'll
but he'll be sad about it because he loves her.
Right. It is also interesting. They didn't quite go into detail, but there was an interesting little exchange between her and the lead dude, and he specifically calls her out as officers like you, which I wasn't sure if it was basically implying that in the Empire, there's less female advancement, or if that's alluding to something else about her character.
I was wondering.
There was
about
only
that
two
as
women
well.
in the whole room, right?
Right. I mean, it's interesting because of course we've seen plenty of other Star Wars media which has tried to kind of retcon that no, there is female representation in Imperial leadership, but so I'm curious if that's what they're implying with that, or if there's something else to her character. So I don't know about that.
I think it's twofold. I think she has a similar background to Cyril in that she probably comes from a much less advantaged background, and also the fact that she's a woman.
Right.
I think she's got a double dose, which in the Empire I feel like does work against you. You have to fight twice as
Absolutely.
hard.
Yeah.
Her mom's probably neighbors with Cyril's mom. Like, keep it down over there. Oh, my boy just came home. That loser.
So I have another like deep cut theory, which I'm going to save towards the end. So I want to come back to that as well.
I wonder something that just a little detail is when Luthen asked him what name, what Cassian, what name he wanted, he had one locked and loaded and ready to go.
Oh, that was his stepdad.
Exactly. So
Right.
Foster dad, yeah.
yeah, his foster dad.
Or
And
foster dad,
so
thank you.
I'm wondering if they're gonna go into why he picked his foster dad, or if that was just or maybe that's just his go-to doing crime name. I don't know.
I mean, they left enough breadcrumbs for us to infer what happened, right? Like
I think they'll show it at some
I
point.
mean, hopefully they'll show it, but I mean, the breadcrumbs seem to imply that the stepfather resisted the Empire in some kind of way, and young Cassian as a teenager came to his defense. They killed him, put him in jail, or put Cassian in jail, and that's how he ended up on Minban, out of prison and into the trenches.
Conscripted, yeah.
Right.
This is your theory? Are you?
I mean, no, that's me just picking up the breadcrumbs that they dropped.
Oh, okay.
Because they talk about what happened to, they refer to it. They refer to the fact that they say that he has an Imperial record, that he was
Right.
arrested and whatever at age whatever, and so I mean, it's like there's breadcrumbs. They don't quite say it, but it's like it's there if you're paying attention.
I feel like they'll just kind of reveal bits and pieces, drop more and more crumbs until we're like, oh look, a whole loaf.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's see here. Luthen. Oh, okay. Let's talk about my favorite scene in this episode is Luthen playing dress up. Your thoughts on that?
Oh yes, how he puts the wig on and he does
And
the
the
motions with his
That's the
hands.
rings. Yeah.
Yeah, and
Smile.
he's like getting into his character for a
Yes.
Yeah.
second. Yeah. That was good.
That was like tasty. That was like a delectable scene.
Because
Things
the two
like-
characters are very different. Yeah.
Things like that are a problem too, why I'm getting invested in these characters, and I'm sorry, I know, well, they're probably gonna die because because we don't see them later on, and so that's my one gripe going in, is like, well, where's he in Rogue One? Well,
But it's so efficient, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's like so little is actually done in a couple of shots. And it tells you so much about who this guy is and what he's doing, and sets up the next few scenes beautifully.
Yeah, it was-
Not to
it's kinda-
necessarily.
I'm sorry.
No,
Yeah, it was kind of like going back to what we were talking about last week, which is like you're right, Andy, of like how much the pacing and the expansive palette or canvas, as you will, of more 12 episodes, they can have those moments, right? Where like in a 6 episode, they probably wouldn't necessarily do that.
Nope.
Right? There'll be something that like, oh, that's a small detail that would get cut, but like they have the luxury of doing that, but it tells so much. And there's just that wide shot, and he just does that thing with his hand, and it's just like, that's so good.
I mean, for that matter, we still, the thing I was talking about last week in terms of use of frame, right? So it's like you have the contrast of every time, every shot, you can always see someone in the background watching or moving. So it's like the walls are listening. There's always someone out, even when his mom slaps, Cyril Karn, and then you can see the person out of focus across the way at the other apartment. She's like, "What are you looking at? Get out of here!" Right? Yeah. But it's like, and then you get this moment alone where the frame is now, instead of like these wider frames that have people out of focus, you have individual close-up shots of his face, of him silhouetted. It's always still voyeuristic, even when it's personal. It's really.
Do you get the feeling that just like everybody's spying on each other too? Like everybody's watching, and there was almost like I almost felt like there was more fear when they saw the person across the way. Like, oh, they're gonna suspect something. Just come inside. I'm gonna give you a hug and come inside.
I mean, that's like the underlying anxiety of the whole
Empire
of the whole show, honestly, too. Yeah, right. Is who is listening, even in the small town? It's like everyone knows. There's all this kind of implied. We know what everyone is up to. To the point then it's like, okay, we all have to bang on the thing.
So many of the shows have been set either at the birth of the empire or as it's collapsing, that it's really interesting to get this look into one where the empire has a decided stranglehold on the galaxy. And so I do think that kind of voyeuristic feel, that anxiety is really intentionally created because nobody feels safe, not even the people who are working for the empire.
Well, okay, speaking to that point, Lexi, can you talk about the scene where we finally get to see Mon Mothma walk into the store?
Oh, that was so well done.
Yeah.
Just the fact that they are kind of speaking in code, first of all. Asks her, I'm gonna bring you to the I don't wonder if the whole showing her the weapon thing and her going, I've been trying to get him away from weaponry, and he's like, oh, I've got some stuff in the back for you.
Yeah.
Is it a temple of patience?
Yeah. That was, I mean, it sets up so much about their characters respectively, seeing them interact with each other, which I think is, this whole show so far has been a master class in like the classic that they tell you in any kind of performing arts, where they go, show don't tell, and everything from the whole running metaphor about the snake goddess, the goddess with the two head, the art piece that he's showing her to sell. All of it is double entendre.
Sure.
And then down to...
And that said, though, even when they are just tell, right? I mean, honestly, once they make it into the back room, right? And then it's all exposition, right?
Yeah.
So it's absolutely not show. It's all tell. And it's the pacing is so clipped. The drops, the information drops are so intentional. So it becomes rooted in character, right? So you still can tell without showing. It's just a matter of keeping it intentional and linking it to character, right? As she starts talking about how I'm being watched. My driver is new. I even go to the bank. All the employees are different.
And their circle is apparently very small.
Yeah, for being a giant city planet, it's kind of surprising how small that circle is.
I mean, it kind of gives Washington D.C. feels.
Yeah.
So with all of the espionage and, where Luthen's assistant is purposely keeping the driver distracted.
Which she seems kind of sketchy too.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, but so does Luthen too. I mean, that's what makes him so intriguing, is that he is so sketchy.
He seems so sketchy that I couldn't help but be reminded in the scene where he is dressing himself in character. I couldn't help but be reminded of Daredevil with Wilson Fisk, very precisely putting his like accoutrement back in that thing, and how he's got everything perfectly lined up and so neat.
Yeah. It's or another like point of reference, like House of Cards, right? I mean, how meticulous that, that everything is planned, everything is, thinking 20 steps ahead. Um, Jason, can you comment about Mon Mothma at home? Because this is another incredible scene.
Yeah, I mean, it like, that actress too. I mean, what a coup to come back and be able to explore that,
chewing through everything.
That's literally what we were talking about last night we were watching. Yeah, she's just like, that whole scene is great. I mean, there's so much going on. This plot line sets up all of these outcomes and all that, and seeing her and the husband, and I mean, it kind of, that and other things kind of drives home the point how I think the rebellion was able to get away with so much. I mean, because between that and the empire also just is so tied up with all of this red tape, and they're disorganized, and then here she is, under their noses doing that, seemingly under their noses doing that. I mean,
and she can't even get away from it from her own husband.
Right, yeah. And then the servants coming in with the food and stuff, like, get at it. It's like, oh well, what's her deal? It's like you were saying, like, everyone's a suspect. I mean, there's so many red herrings, and but it's going to be interesting to see where that goes, though. But that was so many of these scenes that I was telling my wife this last night too. It's like, just, yes, they're chewing the scenery, but I mean, like, everyone is just so invested in their characters, and it's just, it makes it more interesting in a way that none of the other shows were, to me. And
I also love that first shot, and we're seeing her walk up to the dinner table, and we're kind of seeing them through this beautifully ornate, pristine white. It's like her house has jewelry, like the
branches coming through, and the lights, and everything's just so, it's like the perfect bathroom.
And you got to and you really get to see like her domestic life for the first time, gives this character some depth. All is not like, I don't know, he kind of gave off very much like obnoxious trophy husband vibes.
Totally.
Yeah. It's like, oh, and I heard a rumor you bought me a present. I'm taking it back, bitch. So it's just like, I was like, yeah, that's good. Yeah, screw that guy.
Crack the whip.
Crack the whip.
Crack that whip, girl.
Tracy, did you catch the name drops when she reads the guest list?
I mean, I certainly did. There was like Palpatine's right-hand person was there, the one who looks like the chick from the first Star Trek motion picture. But the big one is she references the Gormans, and that's gonna be what ultimately makes her have to come out of hiding and be the actual face as a leader of the rebellion.
Right.
I really want to punch her husband in the face. Anyways.
Yeah, she mentions that they just cut off the Gorman shipping lanes, which, if we remember from, what was that? It was Rebels, right? Rebels, where the Ghost crew actually ends up having to help her escape after she has come out against the Empire for basically gunning down the Gorman people who were protesting that they basically had no food, they had no supplies.
An embargo,
so that's I mean, it makes me wonder, it's like, oh God, are we is the path of this series leading up to that? Like, are we going to actually see that Gorman massacre, which would be very interesting.
I don't think we're going to see it yet. I don't think this season.
Well, not this season, but I mean, is that what is like the culmination of the series? Maybe.
Okay, so there's a comment that is interesting, and it's one that I am hearing a lot. And it's Michael is saying that he's just going to say Andor is boring. Mando, Boba, and Obi-Wan were good and kept the viewer intrigued. I disagree with the panel on how good the first 3 episodes of Andor are.
Oh, really?
Hopefully the next 3 are better. And he's not the first person that I have heard say that. And I've also been hearing that it's one of the lower rated shows as well.
Really?
I think the reason why it feels boring compared to some of these other series is because they have more episodes to world build on. I personally like that.
Not everybody likes slower paced shows. A lot of the modern audience doesn't. And I'll say, I mean, I'm gonna leave it at that.
Right, because we're like an instant gratification culture at this point. But do you think that the reason why it feels slower is because they have more episodes in which to do the world building?
Yes, so they don't have to cram as much into every episode, and there's like, look, if you're into watching Star Wars purely for like combat, lightsaber battles, and all the, yeah, sure, it's probably gonna be boring to you.
I mean, it is a thing where I think back to, you know, we were talking about Book of Boba Fett, right? And it's like we definitely were looking at that going, oh yeah, so they were trying very hard to make sure every episode had some action sequence of some kind. And that was either to the detriment or sometimes detriment and sometimes benefit of the episode. But it also, you know, change the pacing. This is very much structured like each episode is an act in a 3-act feature film.
Well, I think Boba Fett's problem was the editing. It felt very choppy, and I think that if it was re-edited, I think that people wouldn't have had that feeling, because when you look at it as a whole, it kind of ended up coming together. And I think that that's what's going to happen with Andor as well. It's just a much slower burn. I think instead of being like, it's going to just be like,
I mean, I still feel like episodes 1 through 3 built up to the action, to the escape action sequence. Yeah. And, you know, and they got away, and that was the end of that arc. That was the end of that story, right?
Absolutely. Yeah.
And it becomes about a person who is constantly on the run, who is constantly escaping, who's constantly taking orders from people, and when does he get to have his own agency? It's a lot of character stuff. So I mean, it's very different than a lot of other Star Wars. But you know, I mean, that's something that I think is, to me, interesting, is that how much different kinds of Star Wars we are getting.
That's why I like it too. That's what I was saying.
It's subtler, and not everybody likes subtle, and you don't have to.
Right.
And I just like it when they take risks. It's much like with the Marvel stuff. My favorite Marvel stuff is when they take the biggest risks, when they go to the weirdest places and do the goofiest things, right? I mean, take the big swing.
Yeah.
And variety is the spice of life, right? Like if everything was the same pace, people would get bored of it. Like you have to mix it up a little bit.
People would complain about that too.
Yeah.
and honestly, there's an argument to be made about Marvel movies all kind of feeling the same way. Like they found a formula that works. And so now every movie kind of has a similar feel to it. Every single hero has a similar comic cadence to the way that they speak. Right? It's like, you know, say two sad things and then end it on a joke type of thing. So, and people are starting to notice that. And so I think that if you don't vary that up a little bit, then people are gonna get bored. So ultimately, I think that it's smarter to give each series its own feel, and not necessarily every series is going to be made for every person.
Yeah, you can't. Yeah. And I mean, yeah,
and it's okay to not like it.
It's okay to not like it. Doesn't mean it's bad just because you don't like it.
That said, Perrin says, must everything be boring and sad? And you know what, Perrin, stay on your side of the table. Screw you. No, I'm kidding.
You know what? Eeyore is a classic, and he is boring and sad. Yeah. So, like, if they're gonna follow the Eeyore method, then let them do their thing.
Also, just quick, some of that Easter egg hunt stuff. The names she lists off are Arj Dangor and Sizemore. Sizemore, the bald-headed woman that Tracy was talking about. If you dig into the lore, Sizemore is actually force sensitive and like actually uses her mind-reading powers for political favor. So that's the last person you want in Mon Mothma's home.
Right?
God. Terrible. That's really bad.
Yeah, so
maybe her husband is a plant and he specifically invited her.
Yeah. Oh, this marriage is ending. I mean,
He
totally
really
ending
does have a punchable
before the
face.
end of
He's
Buck
getting
Fife
Mace
and
Windu'd out the window.
Yeah.
Yep.
Mace windowed.
Mace Windu.
It'll be interesting to see if he gets a noble death and he realizes the error of his ways, or if he just goes full.
Just
jerk.
goes flying.
Yeah.
I think he's gonna be a whiny little bitch. He seems like a whiny little bitch.
I never get to use one of my favorite words, which is Buck Fife and Gesicht, which is roughly translated to a face begging for a fist.
What language is that?
A face that wants to be slapped. Yeah.
That's a good word.
What language is
on a
that?
shirt.
Buck Fife and Gesicht. I'm gonna give you
Sounds
one
German?
guess. Yes, nailed it.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's
I first learned that word.
Right?
I first learned that word in relation to Joffrey Baratheon.
Man, I'd like to bike Farfin Gason tons of people. So, thanks for the word. I'm using that at work tomorrow.
I'll send you the
Speaking of-
spelling.
speaking
I'll
of
send you the
Farf-
spelling.
Thank
So
you.
we
Thank you.
also hear of a very elaborate plan to Barfeisengast. The I don't know if I
No
said
one's
that
gonna
right.
pronounce it the same.
No one's
I don't-
gonna
I
get
don't
it. You
care.
gotta
It's
send us the
great.
pronunciation too. I butchered
Isn't
that.
there a
We
isn't there a
meet
German
the rebel
phrasing that
cell.
means like sad bacon or something? And it's like
Sad bacon.
it's like when you're sad, and so you want to eat your feelings, and it like literally translates to like sad bacon or something.
If anybody knows,
I mean,
what
that sounds really good. I
please
would like sad
tell
bacon.
us.
I'll take your sad bacon.
That bacon sandwich.
I'll take.
Oh, Jack in the Box.
That sounds like a euphemism for something. I don't know.
There it is.
Okay, yeah. No, so we meet the rebel cell that Andor has been paired with, and that's a really interesting. Compared to the bureaucracy of the Empire, we see just like a bunch of rough and tumble folks who are like, "What the fuck? Who's this new guy?"
Who have Scottish accents in what is obviously the Scottish Highlands.
There you go.
Yeah.
You
They
get to
had
be
to-
the Scottish planet. Excellent.
Cummerspec. Cummerspec is sad bacon. People know it.
I knew it.
Someone
I knew
wrote
someone
know
would know
it.
it. Audience come through. Audience come through.
Oh, it means grief bacon.
Grief bacon.
Oh, even better.
That's so much better. It's
Grief bacon.
that's some juicy grief.
Breakfast
bacon
is the most important meal of the day, unless you have grief bacon
Grief
with
bacon.
it.
Yes. See, everybody's saying it. Everybody is. It's the German word for what happens when you eat when you're sad. Grief bacon. I knew it. Sorry. I'm so excited that I'm not the only one who knew this.
I looked at my bank account yesterday after paying all of my bills and like
had some
after
grief
going to
bacon.
Hawaii and then my housemate said, "Would you like bacon?" And I said yes, and I didn't know how appropriate that was. So
Yeah. You had grief bacon for
I
dinner.
had a literal grief bacon, you guys.
Oh my God, Kevin just said, but what about second grief bacon?
Does Charlie Brown have good grief bacon?
No, that's
Oh.
he's referencing hobbits.
No, I said good grief
No, I
bacon.
know.
I'm making.
Oh,
I'm
yeah, okay,
going-
so it's like I see.
I'm making more references.
Try and make more jokes.
We're just expanding
Andy, you're
the
supposed to keep us
universe
on
here.
track here.
Is there going to be a Charlie
Sometimes I
Brown
just have
comment?
to
Is there going
succumb.
to be a little
Sometimes I just let the storm go.
It's like, I guess we're talking about bacon now. Welcome to Bacon Talk.
I don't eat
Uh,
bacon.
Is
I
the
only
bacon
eat
in
one
Star
kind of
Wars
meat.
blue? Is the bacon in Star Wars blue?
Oh, that's a good blue bacon.
Oh, it has to be because it's grief bacon.
So really quickly before we have to move on, any thoughts about? I just found it very funny when the young guy in the cell was like basically pulled the Doc Brown and was like, "Oh, I must apologize for the inaccuracy of the model."
Yes. Yes. Takes the roof off. Be careful, it's
Yes.
delicate.
He feels to me like I think his name was like Mouse in the original Matrix
Oh
movie.
yeah.
Oh,
He kind of
yeah.
feels like that to me.
Well, it's interesting to see how they're also like, we got to make sure you're down for the cause. Can we trust you? Can we trust you? Which is just a great kind of contrast after all of those scenes with the Imperial Security Bureau. But all right, I think we've kind of made it through the episode. Any predictions? Any thoughts? Any reflections before we move on?
I'm hoping for the Ocean's 11 version of Star Wars right now when they all go on this heist to drive through that tube. But I know I'm not going to get it, but I'm hoping with some extra episodes we might get a little fun little action bit there. So
Anyone else? Any hot takes?
Only cold takes.
I have a crazy hypothesis, which so Deidre seems to have an interesting non-interest in her particular ambition, but took great interest when they then mentioned the name of the system and all that. And it got me thinking they do make it very clear that despite her platinum bleached hair, it is bleached because you can still see her roots. At which point I thought, oh crap, are we doing the thing where
the long lost sister?
Yeah. Is Deidre was Deidre left behind on the planet, picked up by whatever Republic came to recover the wreckage, raised by the Empire, and is that what the security
her immigrant background could it be an immigrant background that they're talking about?
Yeah.
Wait, but wasn't he went to that bar because his sister was at some point like a sex worker?
Right. That's a great red herring, right? As a story ploy.
Well,
now we have this image
that it was somebody else.
So he has no idea where she went. Yeah, so he's just looking for people from his planet.
Yeah. So he's just looking for people from his planet, and since they're often refugees, migrants, a lot of those girls, he's probably just a good guess for him to be like, well, maybe she ended up in a brothel.
Right.
And he could be very wrong.
But
it might be one of the other kids, though.
But if it could end up that ultimately he ends up being pitted against his own sister, who is now was raised and rescued by the Empire. She is a devout believer in the Empire, and ultimately that the weight that he carries with him into Rogue One, like the guilt that we see him as he questions the bad deeds he has done, was because he ultimately had to kill his own sister in a mission. So that's my like.
I dig it. That could be fun.
Yeah.
Well,
and also
not for him, but it could be fun for us.
And also just a really interesting way to approach the story of from either side of, here's why, here are the good things and the not so good things about the rebellion. Here are the good things and not so good things about the Empire. And then it comes to a head and it becomes personal, right? So we'll see. I don't know. We'll see if I'm right.
That would be really interesting.
That's a season 1 ender right there, Andy. That's what that is. And then we got to wait another year to see, like, oh god. So,
2 years.
2 years, yeah.
Very excited to see how the rest of the season goes. But I hear we have crosstalk. Do we have crosstalk, Rodney?
Hey, leave it.
Chuck is on the chat. He just muted and said he hopes Deadpool shows up. But then does that mean that Wolverine's gonna show up?
Yeah.
I saw that poster and hyperventilated quite a bit.
Welcome. We have our friends from Geek Beast on.
What's going on, everybody?
Hey, Johnny Randolph and hey, Chuck Babs.
Hey everyone.
Hello. How you guys doing? What?
Great.
So, did you guys? Are you guys watching Andor as well?
Not at all. I have not seen one episode.
I am going to watch it, but we haven't started. I haven't started watching it yet. I'll say that.
They have to do binge worthy.
Right. See, there we go.
Oh,
we gotta do binge worthy. So
in a week.
See, and I think that the binge pattern will service the show well. I think. I mean, I mean, it's like I am ready and willing to go the weekly. Now that I understand the structure, but it is I think a show that wants to be watched in 3 episode blocks at a time.
Boy, how do you guys avoid spoilers if you're doing a whole season?
It is hard. It is very
hard for me.
Very hard. So yeah, I don't know. We just kind of do.
I don't read social media.
Yeah,
I just type.
That sounds so liberating.
It actually does.
Spoilers don't bother me as much, but like we have a group text and some people may be ahead of others, and we're like, no, don't say anything. Don't say anything. We're not allowed to talk about anything. So we try to bring it all for the show. You guys should join us when we do Andor. We did it once. Lexi and Andy, they joined us when we did whatchamacallit, what was it?
Was that Boba Fett?
But no, not Boba Fett. It was
Mando 2? Oh
No.
It was
no, it was Obi-Wan.
That
It
was
was
that
Obi-Wan.
one episode.
Yes.
of Boba
Obi-Wan.
Fett.
we did, yeah.
We were kind
Yeah.
of defending Obi-Wan.
Mandalorian.
We were defending it. Some other people weren't defending it. It just made for really interesting conversation. And that
great.
really is what binge worthy is all about. So yeah, we should connect and we should do like a binge worthy,
Indeed.
Squadron collaboration.
I would actually
binge
love to
squadron
see
for
what
one
you guys
night.
think of this show once it's out. So
I'm excited about it. There's no
Yeah,
force.
I've heard good
Force
things. I
it.
haven't heard
Yeah,
anything. I'm not
yeah.
going to even talk about it. I'm not even going to talk about it.
I know my friends that hate this show make me feel like I'm gonna love it. They have bad taste. They think the Skywalkers movies are the greatest thing that ever happened in Star Wars. So I'm like,
He's
"Oh,
talking
but
about
don't-"
me. He's talking about me. And I haven't
I'm not
seen it,
talking
but,
about
yeah.
you.
But he
I'm
always gives
talking
me a
about
hard
you.
time because Star Wars is my life. Like it's my favorite franchise. It's been that way since I was a little kid. And so
So you only like Empire Strikes Back?
no, I like all of them. I
good.
even recently went back and watched the prequels, and I actually have a newfound respect for them that I didn't have at the time of the release.
All right.
All right,
I can
okay,
respect
okay.
that.
Let me tell you all, out of those 9 movies, I will burn probably 5 really easy. I love this. I love all the animated shows. All the animated shows are my jam.
Yeah.
And then all the comic books are my jam. Even the Dark Horse comic books are my jam. Even the Tokyo Pop manga was my jam. And I'm looking at these movies like, why don't they hire the same writing team?
I have questioned that, like the Bad Batch and Rebels were like so good, and Clone Wars were so good. I was like, where were the writing team for 7, 8, and 9? They should have used the same people that they used for all the animated properties.
Yeah, that was
for
a
7, 8,
mistake.
and
Yeah,
9.
That was a mistake.
Yeah, I mean,
Not
this
to.
is actually the other really interesting thing about this show. Not giving anything away, but you can really tell that Tony Gilroy was like, "Hey, Star Wars Story Group, I want to work with you."
Yeah.
Right? Because I mean, he really, it's like, I mean, there's some deep cuts, and it's like not like a connected story, but it really is. There's so much lore that
Okay.
figures in tiny, small little ways. It's pretty great. I'm loving it. I'm having a good time.
Okay.
What are you guys talking about tonight?
We're talking about a number of things. It's the news as usual. We're definitely talking about the Wakanda trailer.
Ooh,
That
yeah.
that has us all excited. There's
God.
a lot of speculation going online right now.
You know, it's funny because the news cycle keeps wanting to like poke holes in my confidence in every bit of footage I've seen.
It's been great, right?
The footage is all great, so I don't know where all of this
Right,
horrible
yeah.
reporting is coming from. I'm just like,
Like,
good
who
God.
are you people, and what are you talking about? This looks
Yeah,
great to
this
me.
looks great.
Yeah.
Everyone
looks-
relax.
Yeah, relax. Like people think like Shuri may not be the Black Panther.
Well,
And you know,
and
there's-
if that is the case, I can understand why.
No, in this
But-
last
but
trailer,
it's like,
Black
oh.
Panther had boobs.
Yeah,
It's
she had
definitely
It had
Shuri.
boobs and it also
they
had
don't
her.
think it's- they
It
don't
had
think
her face paint thing.
I'd be mad if they didn't do that.
yeah, people think it's not Shuri. They think it's somebody else. They
Well,
think it's
not boobs.
his girlfriend.
Yeah,
Nakia?
Nakia, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's also very possible that you could have, and I think this would actually be a really good play too, if you have multiple Black Panthers, if you have, you know, a veritable Black Panther team of sorts, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like
Because
the,
even
like the
because
Spider
even
Verse, but all in one. Like,
because even oh gosh, what's his name from the mountain tribe? He had the
M'Baku.
he had the
M'Baku.
M'Baku had the tooth necklace on
Mhm.
too, which looked like a Black Panther.
Wait, can't only
Possible.
one person at a time ingest the flower?
Well, the
That's never
flower is
been-
gone.
yeah.
The flowers have all been burned. Along
Yeah.
with,
Oh,
Now, how do they
Forrest
get the
Whitaker.
power of the Black Panther?
Not in the
Or is it-
multiverse, they aren't.
that's true.
Yeah, that was at first.
They're
And
gonna
we
Did
are
I
in the
see
world- we are
Coulson
book
in the
of
trailer?
multiverse.
Import it from another verse.
I don't think Coulson. But-
The guy with the binoculars, I could have sworn that was
Watch Coulson be Black Panther.
Well, that should not be
Yikes.
the case.
Absolutely not.
What?
I think
We
Bilbo
riot
is
if it's
back.
Coulson.
Bilbo Baggins is back.
He's
He
the Black
is,
Panther.
but
Martin
the person
Freeman.
with the binoculars looks like they have a longer face, and Martin Freeman has like a very like square face. So they look like
True.
Coulson to me. I don't know. I could be totally wrong, but I was like,
True. People don't think Chadwick is actually dead.
Somebody said Scarlett Johansson is
Rodney.
going to be Black Panther.
Rodney.
Oh Lord.
Rodney says he thinks it's the mom too. You know.
Okay,
Mhm.
okay. Just because Scarlett Johansson came up, I gotta say one of the best moments in comedy in the last couple years was when Michael Che, in front of Colin Jost, talked about Sammy Davis Jr. being cast as Scarlett Johansson.
Oh Lord. Michael Che is hilarious.
Yeah, so that was one of the things where he writes a joke for Colin, and Colin has to read the joke about his wife, who he's going home to later that night.
Yeah.
Playing.
Yeah.
he loves it. He loves it.
Oh God, it was so brilliant. It was like.
I
Yeah.
love Michael
That's
Che.
awesome. That's awesome.
Anyways.
Yeah, but
Well,
we're
cool.
talking about that. And
Yeah.
what else is in the news today? There's not a lot of news today actually, but what else is in the news?
I mean, that's pretty big news, right? I mean,
Netflix's Stephen King film.
Oh, I didn't hear about that. I know
Yep.
there's also they also announced Harrison Ford. Or no, that's not announced. That's rumor mill that Harrison Ford might be up to replace William Hurt as Thunderbolt Thunderbolt Ross.
Yeah, I
Yep.
heard that. I guess it
Which,
is a rumor.
you know, we need we need kind of a jerk guy to be a grumpy old bastard who gets angry irrationally at people.
Hey,
oh wait, Harrison Ford.
Check.
As long
we
as we
go.
keep him out of Indiana
doesn't even have to
Jones,
act.
I'm fine with that. As long as we keep Harrison Ford out of Indiana Jones.
We need
I just
him
think-
there with Shia.
One
more time.
I just feel like
One
I
more
wa-
time.
Do we?
I
My
watched
fingers are
that
crossed.
Indiana Jones, and I was like, "This is like my great grandfather trying to be an architect." And I don't want to be mean with Harrison Ford, but like that time has passed.
My fingers are crossed that Indy 5, because it's the same director from Logan. What's his name? James Mangold. I'm hoping he can work his magic. So
Yeah. Make him old and bring Shia LaBeouf back. And make him
What?
young Indiana
No.
Jones. That's what we want. That's what
Oh.
America wants. We want that with The Rock.
Chewie.
Maybe Kevin Hart in there too.
I actually think that's what we should do. We should make Kevin Hart, Indiana Jones, and bring back The Rock. And bring him with The Rock. Let's
You know
make it a buddy comedy.
okay, actually,
Lexi's
Rock
not
can be the
amused
new
at all.
Miriam.
He's like, I'm not amused.
Oh, I'm amused. I just have a puppy trying to knock over my lights right now.
Okay.
I'm trying to listen and not
get
let
it.
a
I get
lamp
it. She's
fall
like,
on my
I'm not
head.
Don't let the lamp fall.
We
on
need
your
to
head.
start a campaign. We need to start something, guys. We want Kevin Hart and The Rock in the new
Call him
next
Ohio
Indiana
Jones.
I don't care
Ohio
who's Indiana Jones. I don't care which
Ohio
one is.
Jones.
I just want them
You heard
together.
it first here.
Kevin Hart is Ohio
yeah.
Jones.
So if you want to hear more of that, and we go more into detail, stick around and listen to Geek Beast coming up next. We are, of course, the Pod Squadron. Thank you very much for joining us here on Monday nights. We are tackling all of the Andor series. We're doing weekly reacts on Monday night, so come back next week. Make sure you check out all the other shows on the Geekish Network, such as our esteemed guest here that are starting up very shortly. And I can't find my space on the script.
All wings return to base.
Yes, we are the Pod Squadron, so please check out all of our content on podsquadron.com. Like and subscribe. Follow us on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube for podcast subscriptions. You can subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, or your favorite podcast app. I am Chinese Pirate at Chinese Pirate _ on all platforms.
I am the hot nerd girl. That's
Is
it.
it my?
That's all I am.
Is it my turn?
Yeah.
Yes.
I was like, I don't know if you're done, Tracy. I don't want to cut you off. All right, you can find me on Instagram at Feral Geek Aesthetic and on Facebook at Feral Geek. Sometimes I even post.
Jason, BeyondForever.net, Beyond Forever Studios, everywhere else.
And once again, stick around for Geek Beast right after us. All wings return to base, course laden, and prepare to make the jump to light speed on my mark. And remember, the truths we cling to depend on our own point of view. Only the Sith deal in absolutes. Good night, everyone.
Bye, everybody.
Ohio Jones.